So the second season of the supernatural horror hit franchise is back with a bit of a revitalization, as they have turned it into an anthology series, so the second season has got nothing to do with the first season. And I actually think this works out perfectly. I mean, I loved how the 90s show worked in terms of every single episode being very different, and then occasionally having a continuation of a past storyline. And the 90s show is absolutely incredible. Obviously, it lives in its entirety to be revisited, but I really like what they've done here, as they've modernized it, turned it into a serialized format, and just created a new season with brand new characters, new mysteries. Every single episode does still relate to the past book storyline, but this time they have a brand new narrative, and like I said, I just think it works brilliantly. That being said though, comparing season 1 to season 2, I have to say I much preferred season 1, as I really like the mystical supernatural storyline, and I just loved what they did with Slappy in terms of giving him a complete backstory. And I was really open-minded with the second season, and whilst it definitely did have some standout moments, I just didn't really like the revelation that it was all aliens behind everything. And speaking about the hit 90s show and the books as well, I love that they always end it with a mega big cliffhanger, and the season 1 cliffhanger was so good, which is that Slappy is in his body, and this time they have shown that Trey has still got some alien goo inside of him. And I think it's interesting what they did with the character of Trey, as they really do make you want to hate this guy. And so on a number of different occasions across the season, he is getting trapped by the aliens, so clearly he has got more goo inside of him than Anthony, and before the goo was fully going to take over Anthony's body, they were able to use the serum to save him. Unlike all of the characters from the 90s who have been in this goo for ages, they unfortunately can't return back to their human selves completely. And also, I feel like the serum in the base isn't as fully developed as the serum in the outside world. And speaking of the 90s characters, I loved it that they brought all of them back to the surface in modern day times, but I just feel like they could have done so much more with that. It's a shame that they didn't have 9 or 10 episodes, as I feel like that final episode felt a little bit rushed, as it really did feel like they are packing so much in terms of just wrapping everything up. And even though there were definitely some emotional moments between Anthony and Matty in particular, I loved their reunion. I loved everything that they were doing with having these two group of characters together, which we didn't really see in season 1. But they could have and should have just done so much more with that. What I did like though is that we really are going through a 90s nostalgia phase in modern day in terms of looking back at the 90s with such rose-tinted glasses on. So I thought it was really funny having people from the 90s coming into modern day and saying, what, is this how you date nowadays? And then when everybody was trapped once again by the aliens and trapped in the pod-like state, I thought it was a massive risk that Anthony and Jen were taking in terms of completely letting the aliens out, especially as they have been trapped down there pretty much by humanity for 30 years. So the fact that they just wanted to fly off without wanting to exact any type of revenge, I thought was a tiny bit unrealistic. And why on earth are Matty and all of these characters willing to go with them? And then we obviously got the Trey twist that he still has some goo inside of him, so either that alien is going to exact their revenge and take over the entire world, or given the fact that the ship and pretty much all of the aliens' friends have now disappeared, maybe that alien won't be able to survive, so it could just dissolve. So now let's go through all of the characters. So I think David Schwimmer did an absolutely brilliant job. I love that he had a little bit of Ross Geller inside of him in terms of being a bit of a botanist and being a little bit kooky, and I thought it was actually pretty scary when he was just kidnapping and trapping CJ. I feel like they could have done a little bit more with evil Anthony, and I loved it in the final episode. He was allowed to go all out with all of the comedic moments, and he was absolutely hilarious. Such a Ross Geller aspect to him. For example, when he was like, anybody else got any skills? Because Trey was obviously getting a C+ in all of his science exams, and I thought he was really funny as well with Matty and Jen. Like I said, I just wish that we would have got more comedic moments and also more terrifying moments. But obviously, they paid David Schwimmer a lot to be in this show, so they definitely, from an adult's perspective, elevated his role so much more, as he pretty much shared the same amount of screen time as all of the kids combined, which is pretty rare in a bit of a teen horror show. I quite like the premise of David Schwimmer's Anthony character being reacquainted with his long-lost kids, as they haven't visited him or lived with him for so long, and actually they are twins, very different type of characters. I feel like they could have explored the relationship with the mother and Anthony a little bit more. Speaking of all of the teens, I feel like they were all pretty much very underdeveloped, but I feel like the twins in particular, as they're linked to Anthony Anthony, who is pretty much one of the main characters and is also the main face on the poster. They could have and should have just developed them two a little bit more. I did love the episode where it was focusing on Cece trying to be the perfect student, but actually there was a lot of difficulty behind keeping this perfect image up all of the time. And speaking of the episode, I think for the most part, I feel like all of the characters and actors did a good job, as obviously all of these monsters are not there when they're filming these scenes and they have to imagine it. So I think for the most part they did a really good job, but I feel like the monsters blood episode, you could tell that Cece didn't really know where the blob was going to be. I absolutely love that we had Anna Ortiz here playing Jen. Of course, she played Hilda brilliantly in Ugly Betty. And I really like the relationship between Jen and Alex and how she had to constantly have the different hats on in terms of being a police cop, which she did really, really well, and a mother. But I really didn't understand why Alex was defending Murph. It's not as if they had a good relationship back when they were kids and she just didn't want to be a snitch. But I feel like Murph was so disrespectful to her. I hope by the end of this season she is happy to tell Jen the truth, as they've got a good relationship now, and then hopefully her record will be cleared. I think Trey was an absolute bully, an absolutely awful narcissistic type of character, but like I said before, I feel like they purposefully crafted him like that, as they really do want the audience to really hate this guy. I thought Frankie was really, really cool. I loved her speech when she was like, look, you don't understand all of the things that I have gone through and how hard it is for me. And I think it was the right decision to make her end up with Devon, who I think was a really cool character. And obviously he had some goo in him right in the beginning, so he was being manipulated by the Rachel character. And I love the little storyline they gave CJ in terms of wanting to be promoted within his family business. And of course, each episode was based on a particular novel. So Stay Out of the Basement was really, really cool, especially all of these crazy plant things taking place. Monster blood constantly puking out all of these monster things. The boy who cried monster and no one really believing CJ. And the car possession. All of that was really, really cool. But I feel like for some reason in the first season, they were just able to push it and explore all of the supernatural aspects a little bit more. But all of that being said, I really enjoyed Goosebumps The Vanishing. I think it had an interesting plot, even though I didn't like the fact that it was all revealed to be aliens all along. Wasn't that great. And hopefully they get a season 3. I mean, they're plastering and promoting this everywhere, so hopefully everybody watches it. And as far as teen horror shows go, I think it's so much better, incidentally also produced by Sony, than I Know What You Did Last Summer, and pretty much on the same level as the brilliant Scream TV series, Are You Afraid of the Dark, American Horror Story, which is also an anthology series, and of course similar to Stranger Things. I did have slightly higher expectations than what the final product ended up being, but it was still incredibly enjoyable, and so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Goosebumps The Vanishing a solid 7 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of Goosebumps The Vanishing? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.